Recently Saudi Arabia's King Salman did something unprecedented. He visited Russia. After the visit came the usual announcement of business deals that promise a lot but deliver little. However, Russia's Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation announced that it would provide Saudi Arabia with its sophisticated S-400 air defense systems. King Salman's visit appears to have delivered real cooperation. This indicates that Saudi Arabia and Russia are redefining the nature of their relationship. These were two countries firmly on opposite ends of the Cold War. Also important is that the Shia Iran, which is Sunni Saudi Arabia's regional rival, has been silent. Iran and Russia have a complicated relationship, one marked by suspicion and distrust. But this is true for any country that does business with Iran. But they had set aside their differences, becoming military allies to save Bashar Assad in Syria and destroy the Islamic State. Now, Russia is promising to supply Iran's biggest enemy with air defense systems and Iran hasn't objected. Consider Russia's position in the Middle East. Russia partnered with Iran to save the Assad regime, to show everyone and mostly its domestic population that they were still a powerful country. Its campaign was successful, as it prevented the Syrian government from falling and the Islamic State from rising. But it did not undermine U.S. strategic goals in the Middle East. When the Syrian civil war started, the U.S. was determined to remove Assad. But the so-called moderates who are jihadists were not in any good shape for fighting and also not capable of running a government. The United States may state otherwise, but that is the real truth. The Islamic State was already a dominant force in the region. So fighting ISIS was a priority. Russia did that effectively. Now Assad has been saved and the Islamic State's caliphate finished, the question is, what comes next? With his out of the picture, the US, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Russia, Turkey and Iran no longer have a reason to cooperate with one another. Iran, Turkey and Saudi Arabia are all competing to fill the power vacuum left by the group's departure, and Russia's long-term interests don't align with any of theirs. Iran has become the most powerful player in the region with influence over Syria and Iraq. The jihadis in Syria have very little space and will be clobbered by Russia and Syrian army. Turkey sees this as an opportunity to increase its influence in the region based on its comparatively superior military strength. Iran will cooperate with Turkey on the basis of suitability. Syria, Turkey and Iran don't want Kurdish independence. Saudi Arabia is going through an internal process which is disruptive. They do not want to completely depend on the United States, especially when oil prices are low. They also feel that if Russia is already in the Middle East, then why not make the relationship better? Turkey is not in the best relationship with the United States or with Europe. So Russia is a good option. Unlike the Islamic State, all three countries have the power to threaten Russian interests directly. Turkey competes with Russia in the Caucasus. Also President Erdogan is ambitious and wants to exert power in the region. Iran also has interests in the Caucasus. It also shares a border with Central Asia and Afghanistan where Russia has long-term interests. Saudi Arabia can still influence global oil prices and is the worldwide leader in exporting jihadism, a threat to a country like Russia, which has a large minority Muslim population. Russia is trying to forge better relationships with all of them. Its relationship with Turkey is sustainable and it is supplying S-400 to Turkey. Its relationship with Iran is solid. Now Russia is building a relationship with Saudi Arabia. Russia is cultivating ties with Israel too. During the Cold War the United States had its allies and the Soviet Union had its allies. Today's Russia is not Soviet Union. The US and Russia actually share some long-term interests in the Middle East. Neither wants to see any one country dominate the entire region. Iran does not think it needs to take Saudi Arabia head-on. Tehran believes Saudi Arabia's internal problems will drag it down, and that, Best thing Iran can do is engage Saudi Arabia in expensive and time-consuming proxy wars. Iran already is more influential in the Middle East. Iran may not particularly like Russia's providing Saudi Arabia with S-400s, but it can look past this particular issue. Russia is still playing an important role in helping the Assad regime retake the parts of Syria it has lost in the war. But just because Iran is silent doesn't mean it is blind to what's happening. And just because Iran and Russia have cooperated in recent years doesn't mean their relationship is ironclad. Russia cannot be everything to everyone in the region, and at some point it will be forced to make difficult decisions. By keeping quiet, Iran continues to reap what benefits it came from Russia's moves. News about the S-400s doesn't change much, but it underscores just how quickly things can change in the Middle East.